Good afternoon, everybody. Today is Tuesday, August 11th, and it's Talk About It Tuesday live chat. Today, we're going to talk about how to design a pattern template using Microsoft Publisher. Now, this is part two, okay? Last week, we talked about how to design that pattern template using Google Docs or Microsoft Word. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to now hide this banner across the bottom. And if you notice, Novella, I did manage to stop it from scrolling. Anyway, so I hope you bear with me. I have been doing back-to-back remote training sessions since 8:30 this morning in the software biz. And I got through with my last one not even 15 minutes ago. So I'm still deep in the land of certified payroll and prevailing wage. And now I'm going to quickly switch gears and talk to you about Microsoft Publisher. So first, I am going to share my screen and Publisher. Okay, first thing I want to say about Microsoft Publisher is it is a totally different animal than Microsoft Word or even Google Sheets. So when you open Publisher, this is kind of what you get, okay? So the first thing you want to do is you you want to come into your view, and I made this 150%, so hopefully you guys can see it. The next thing you want to do is you want to come to your page design, and you want to put in guides, because everything in Publisher is pretty much within text boxes and stuff that you create, and guides are really going to help you out. So I usually choose the 7x5 grid for my guide. And what it does is it puts in all of these little blocks, okay? Now, they don't show up when you print, but they do show up when you're working on your pattern template. So the next thing you want to do is you want to choose your colors. Now, there is a crap load of color choices that are built into Publisher, and you can create your own new color scheme. So if you remember last week, I said to you, every color that you use on your website or in your logo has a hex key, okay, or a number in addition to a name. So you want to, if you want to create your own color scheme, you come in and you just change these things. If this is a custom color, you come to the custom tab and you put in that hex number and it will change it, okay? So you can literally change all of the different elements within your color scheme. And yeah, I realize it's jumping like crazy and I'm not sure why. So I'm going to quit trying to create my own, and I'm just going to use this opulent color scheme because it's probably closest to what I would use for Yarny Bookkeeper. So if you remember from last week, I had that document that I said was, you know, the elements of a pattern that I, as a maker, like to see. not because I'm stupid, but it's just, I like to see all of those different elements just so I can get an idea of what the designer had in mind when she created it. So if that makes sense, um, you know, it just think of, I mean, we design patterns, or you guys design patterns, and I'm sure you do it based, you try and think about what a maker or a user is going to want to see. Let's just face it, we're not always successful. This is just a compilation of all the things that um, I really like when I work with a pattern. So not only can you set your own colors, you can also choose your own fonts, okay? And you can create a new font scheme. And I'm going to do this with Ink Draft because it's a nice kind of a scripty without being horribly scripty font. And Open Sans for the main text of the body, and I'm just going to call this YB for Yarny Bookkeeper. So right off the top, the first thing we want to do is we want to click Insert. We want to draw a text box, and this is where those grids really come in handy, because I can draw a text box that fits right into this grid. And I'm going to try and get this centered now that I know where it is. There we go. And I want this is going to be my pattern name. So I want to choose my title font color. And I want it to be top aligned. And I want the font size to be 48. So here, and then of course I have to change this to Ink Draft. And I didn't do it right. There we go. So there I have my pattern name. So because this is the cover of my pattern, think of it as, your pattern is going to be in a PDF, and it's going to have the biggest and best either single photo of your finished object or a grouping of 3 or 4 smaller images in a collage type deal. And you want that to be up front and prominent on your pattern. So here I'm going to draw. Actually, you can just come and get a picture from a file. And I'm going to go get one that I set up for, hold on just a second. What did I call? Here it is. All right, that's not where it is. Hold on. I told you I'm kind of brain dead. Here it is. So here's my big, bold, wonderful image. Now you can easily resize it. Okay, so come and grab one and put your cursor over one of those circles in the corner, and you can squish her down. And then you kind of want to center it. And there she is. Now, let's say you want your company name and copyright info. Okay, so you come to insert, and this is business information. And you can edit this so that the business information always comes, everything always comes into that block when you use it. So I'm going to put in business name. Okay, my name is going to be Nancy Smith. I'm going to be cute. I'm going to have a lovely title called Head Bookkeeper and Chief Hooker. And trust me, I wish I could still be the chief hooker. So you can put in your business address if you want, or you can simply put in your copyright information. And if you want, you can put in your email address. And sorry, I realize this is jumping and I don't know why. And if you give this a name, like the YB business info, it's always going, anytime you select that, you're going to have it. And we're going to update the publication, and then we're going to um, maybe I have to draw a text box. Sorry, I knew how to do this last night, but like I said, I have done absolutely nothing but bookkeeping this morning. Okay, so there's my name. This is what you do. You choose what you want to put in. So there's that. And then you put in your company name. And your copyright information. So now let's take a look at what this is going to look like. Okay, so come over here to File and Print, and this is what this is going to look like. Now, Publisher gives you a much different look than Microsoft Word. So just remember that. This is Publisher is kind of like the cheap version of Adobe InDesign or Adobe Illustrator. So now I want to come down here and I want to add another page. So I want to go to page design and I'm sorry, I want to go to insert and page. So now I have a blank page. So now is where I start, just pulling all those things in from that elements of a pattern sheet that I handed out last week. So we want to draw a text box. And again, you want to come back to your page design and your guides and grab that guide thing. Now, the guide is really handy because you've got your ruler over here at the left as well as on the top. So you can literally measure out the width of things, which is something that you can't do in Microsoft Word. So I'm going to change this to ink draft, and I don't think I set that as my default thing. But if I want to make my headings like a 26, so now I can put in difficulty level, skills required, techniques used. And if I wanted to make that a lovely, this color, then I would draw my next text box. And let's say I want everything to be an 11 font because my eyeballs are getting old. So now you would list all of those things that fall in underneath that heading. And if you really want them indented, because Publisher doesn't have a list element like Word does, so you kind of have to like make your own list so you can just indent things. So you could put in your difficulty. Okay. So now let's take a look at this again. We'll come and do file and we'll do print. And here's our first page or second page. So you can see that Publisher just gives you a much more polished look. It is more difficult to use. Publisher is not part of the free Microsoft Office suite. You would need to go ahead and purchase a Microsoft Office license, and I think you can get it for like $75 a year. And I'm just going to stop sharing. And I do have some comments, so let me help over there. Hey, it's Novella. It does bring everything all together. It gives you a nice set of elements. And, you know, whether you design a bookkeeping system or whether you design a pattern or even when you design a website, you know, we can only figure out so much about what the people who are going to use the pattern, visit the website, we can only figure out how much they want to see. Okay. When it comes to websites, yeah, you want to make it visually attractive. You want to make sure that the colors aren't too glaring. You don't want crap that's like flashing and I mean, I go to some sites and there's the ads where they're just going with black backgrounds. I can't read it. It hurts my eyes and I leave. Okay. So the same kind of thing falls into play when we design a written pattern. Some people are going to like charts. Some people are going to want written words. And the best thing that a designer can do, in my opinion, okay, so take this as a grain of salt from a maker's perspective. I can do either. I like the ability to have both. And like I said last week, when I was telling you about this really pretty little knitted cover up that I'm doing, it's like a light sweater, very lacy. There was, it has a 22 stitch repeat over 8 rows. Now, consider that I work off my iPad, so I'm working one page at a time. Just like if I had a printed pattern, I would be working one page at a time. So she started off with the written instructions. And then on the second page, she had a chart. And it was like, oh my God, I'm really glad she had both because the chart's all screwed up, but the written instructions are correct. So if she had only put in the chart, I would have looked at that lovely little lace repeat and say, oh my God, this is ugly. This doesn't look anything like the picture of the finished item. So we constantly want to strive to put out the best work that we can. Tech editors, pattern testers, how we write the pattern. It's just like a bookkeeping system. And this is where I get really crabby because all the bookkeeping profession, not all of them, probably 90% of the bookkeeping professionals that I know. And thanks, Novella. Yeah, I would make a great tester, but these are not conducive to me doing any tests. I see so many things that you guys are calling for pattern testers for, and it's like, oh my God, I want to make that. Yeah, right. It would take me 6 years, or okay, not 6 years, but it would take me a long time. But everybody thinks that there is this kind of one size fits all. way of doing things, especially when it comes to bookkeeping. And that's not true. And it's not true with you guys designing good quality patterns. There is not any one size fits all way of doing it. Heather does these really incredible little amigurumi, and they have little felt or fabric accents, and you know for her, and I've used some patterns like hers, actually from a Dutch designer. um, and what she would do is she would include a page in the PDF of the pattern that was all full-sized pattern pieces of all of those little accents. Now, sometimes it was felt that went behind the plastic safety eye and in front of the crochet fabric. So it's like the felt was like mushed in between the fabric and the back of the safety eye. Now, sometimes they were just round, sometimes they were teardrop shaped. On a couple of them, they were like little flowers. So having that full size pattern there at least gave you an indication of what she was thinking. Okay. Now, if you used the exact same materials that she used in her example as she was writing the pattern, you could use those exact little pattern pieces for those felt pieces, and you'd be good. So if you change it up, if you used a bigger yarn, you would know that you would need to make it bigger. Now, the cool thing with in a PDF, you can change it from 100% to 150. Okay. You can use like the Microsoft little picture tool. What do they call it? It's the Stitch. Uh, yeah, I was on a roll. Now I've like, um, what the heck do they call it? Okay, in Windows 10, it's called a snip and sketch. Okay, so you could use the snip and sketch to grab that little, say, flower shaped piece of felt, and you could then put that little screenshot into a Word document at 100% of its normal size, and then go in and you could make it. Yeah, that another thing. Yeah, you can just fiddle with it. You can go in and you can take that image and you could make it 150%, or you could make it 200% and print it out on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and then you could fool with it, you know. Um, but all we can really do is put out the best quality item that we can. Now, whether that's a handmade finished piece or whether it's a PDF of a pattern. And it's all a learning process. None of us were born knowing how to do this. There's a bucket load of software out there, which means, we're going to have to play around and experiment and learn and then decide what what we want to use. And, for today, Google Sheets might be just fine. But 3 months from now, you may want a little more flexibility in formatting, and you want to go to Microsoft Word. And then in 3 to 6 months, let's say you want a little more professional buffed edge, and you go to something like Microsoft Publisher. And if you really want to go big time, and use the tools that the print designers use, you would use something like Adobe InDesign or Adobe Illustrator, and they all work kind of like Publisher, except they have way more features. I have Adobe InDesign for the software business, and I literally created our brochures in Adobe InDesign because, first of all, when I went to the local printer and said, I need a brochure, it needs to be on legal size paper. It needs to be threefold, and I want printing on both sides. I said, I have something already designed in Adobe InDesign. You should be able to take my file and just, print everything out. Well, when they told me how much it was going to cost, I about fell over. And for less than half the cost to print 500 brochures, I went and I bought a really nice Lexmark um, laser color printer. And I bought some really nice paper and I did my own. So, I mean, you don't, those are just like a whole bunch of different things that it can happen as you evolve and your business evolves. I mean, you may never change the fonts, the font colors, or the way your uh, pattern template is laid out or structured, but you may just want to give it a sharper, crisper edge. And hi, Natalia. Um, for right now, I would say any of you can do an incredible job using just Google Docs or the free online version of Microsoft Word. If you want to, spend the money for Microsoft, and actually, let me go tell you how much Microsoft will cost. So let's see. We want to go to Microsoft.com. Hold on just a second. I know I'm like Microsoft.com. There we go. God, I can't spell today. Okay, so Office. Buy now. Okay. Now, Microsoft obviously has a whole buttload of different choices, and I'll share my screen. Application window. There we go. So I just went to Microsoft.com, and when you get there, you want to come to products and for home, and then do plans and pricing. So for $100 a year, you get the 365 family. You can use it for 6 people and or computers, devices, and you get a terabyte of cloud storage in Microsoft OneDrive. So with that, you get Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Publisher, Access, and Outlook, plus OneDrive and Skype. Now, if you just want it, if you don't need anything that big, for $70 a year, okay, one computer and apps, okay, for your iPad or your phone, you get all the same thing. You get your Word, your Excel, your PowerPoint, your OneNote, your Publisher, Microsoft Access, which is a database program, which most of you guys probably wouldn't use. But Word, Excel, Publisher would be awesome. PowerPoint, if you plan on doing any training demonstrations. OneNote is kind of like Evernote. It's a notebook, note-taking application. I prefer Evernote because my notebooks, and this is going to sound silly, my notebooks are down the left-hand side of my Evernote. With OneNote, your notebooks are in tabs across the top. I don't like that for whatever reason. Maybe because it's tabs and I get really tired after being at the computer all day and I can't find anything and nothing makes sense. And well, you know how it goes. So those are just some of the things. And then, of course, when you do this 365 personal at $70 a year, not only can you can sync stuff between the hard drive of your laptop and your devices, and you can do it through OneDrive, which is like Google Drive or Dropbox. And if you really wanted to, say you were somewhere else and you want it at somebody else's computer and you wanted to go make a revision in Word for a pattern, you could log into your Microsoft online account and you could change that there, republish it, and poof, you're done. Okay, no more waiting until you get home. So that's kind of it for today. Publisher really is much more finicky. So, I would say, just because I'm practical, I'm also cheap, except when it comes to buying yarn. Start with either Google Docs or Microsoft Word, because you're going to find that your pattern writing skills are going to change. The longer you write patterns, they're going to change. And you may find you never want to leave. And you know what? That's okay, because Microsoft's print to PDF puts out a really nice looking document. And it's not as fussy, because let's face it, and I'm going to share my screen again. Who wants to always draw boxes? Okay. Who wants to do that? I mean, seriously. The nice thing is, you can copy it. Um, and you can paste it. But it doesn't bring everything over unless I had too many things. Um, oh, no, it will bring everything over. I had too many um, commands going on. But you still got to line it up. Okay. With Word, you've got all of those wonderful like list elements. And you can change your list bullets. You can do all of that stuff super easy. It's not so easy to do that in Publisher. But the flip side is it does give you a much different looking document, especially that front page. I mean, that image is just like so crystal clear. Now, the other thing is it's easier to um, okay, so let's say we want a text box that's going to cover half the page, and we got our text, text, text. And we want to put a picture. Let's say we want to call out the placement of the eyes. Okay. We can shrink that. We can put that down here. And we can write all of our little Bruja notes. Okay. And that's a super sharp image. And maybe it was just that I had a good picture taking day. Who knows? But if you've got a super nice quality printer that's not an inkjet, because oh man, those things just they suck up the ink and it bleeds right through your paper. And they're very expensive. But if you've got a super nice laser jet, when you print that image, it's going to look really, really nice, especially if you do it in color. I mean, you will get that lovely, purple around the outside of the eyes. So, Publisher is something to think about, but it's certainly not anything that I would tell you that you have to get. And I'm not even going to save this. But with Publisher, you can do all kinds of nifty little things. Like I make my own hang tags for fanciful things when I go do a craft fair. They're like a big. They're almost like a big business card, and the front of it is all of my contact information and my logo and blah blah blah, and the back side of it is care instructions. So Publisher is really great. Doesn't mean that you can't do the same kind of thing with Word. So there you have it. I am exhausted. As I said, I've been going since nonstop at a computer since 8:30 this morning, teaching people how to do things. So I'm kind of taught out for today. But if you have questions, by all means, post it in the group. I will definitely come in and check. Remember, I did last week put a link to that document. I called it Elements of a Pattern. And I put a link in so that you can go get that down out of my Google Drive account, make a copy of it, print it out, do whatever you want with it, read through it and say, no, I'm not really ready to do this now. And really make your own style, but try and take care of all the people involved. One of the reasons that I like charts sometimes, y'all know I'm blind in one eye. Okay. So my left eye does the work of two, and I spend a buttload of time at the computer. And then I come home and I get on my iPad and I knit, okay? Or when the hands cooperate, I crochet. So all day long, I'm reading something. So for me to come home and knit and use a chart, that's almost like soothing for me visually, because it's one little symbol instead of a whole bunch of words that are there. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I really hope you guys come up with some new topics. Check out the Facebook group for that pinned post where I do a request for topics for Talk About Tuesday. I'm certainly happy to run my mouth about everything. Sometimes I feel like, that jack of all trades, master of none. Do I have all the answers for everything? No. Do I have a different perspective than you? Absolutely. I'm coming from the maker standpoint, or the person who's going to be using that pattern that you design. And it's not about, I'm dumb. I don't understand. I am just starting to crochet. It's about none of that. It's just kind of getting an idea in my head about what you had in mind when you wrote your pattern. So that's it for this week. Thank you all for joining. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see hopefully some of you in the Facebook group. Bye.